What's going on, guys and girls? This is Webby from Desert Sabers / Coreband. Today I'm going to run you through the setup of all the Arduino software needed for the Proffie to get it up and running. Show you some tips and tricks along the way of what I do. I've installed close to 500 Proffieboards now, so I have a little bit of experience with them. So I'm just going to run you through the basics and what you need to do. So the first thing you need to go to Frederick's site. So this is where you download the Proffie version. At the moment it's 2.9. I believe it's in the new beta versions at 3.7 at the moment. That introduces a lot of new features which I can come back and revisit, if need be, when that's available. So first thing you need to do is, right here it says what you will need. You need the Proffieboard, obviously, and you need the software. So you click on the software. This brings you to the Arduino site. Just download the latest version. Doesn't really matter which one, so you click here and download it. I've already done it, so I won't do it again. After that's installed, I install it to the desktop, so I just put it into here. It just makes it easier to get to, and it's just a lot quicker. So when you go back, you'll need the plugin. This is where a lot of people get tripped up, I think. So you've obviously downloaded the Arduino software. Once you start it up, you'll need to add in the URL to get the board. So for the board to show up, so you just copy this URL. You go into your Arduino. So if we go to the desktop, you just open up Arduino. So at the moment you just go into the stock Arduino and open that up. Under File, you go to Preferences, and Additional Boards Manager is where you want to add that URL that we just copied. So you add that in there, click OK. What's going to happen now is when you go back into the Boards Manager, you'll be able to see it. So you've done that. Next step, go back to this page here. Then you need to open up Zadig. Now this is the crucial thing. So once you download Zadig, you only have to do this once. So you download it. I'll put it to the desktop. Once you download it and you've wired up your board as seen here, basically what you'll want to do is open up Zadig. And at the moment, it just comes up as a blank screen. You want to go to List All Devices. And then you need to press both of the buttons. So first off, actually it'll help if you plug the board in. So plug the board in. Then you need to get these buttons are actually really hard to press. So you just need to click both these at the same time. Right, then what will happen is it will pop up under here, and then it'll say STM32 bootloader, and then you just hit update driver. So it will actually say update driver here. So see if we open up the software again. I think because I've already done this, so I don't think it's going to pop up again, but yeah, so you just click on it. Once it's done, it'll come up under here and you'll see once you've pressed both the buttons. I thought that it might show up, but I don't think it's going to. Let me just try this again. So you want to press both buttons. Yeah, it's not showing up. I think because I've already done it. Anyway, it will come up here and here we go. STM32 bootloader. Then you just click this button. It will say, I believe, update Windows drivers something. So you just click that So if you just click reinstall driver, it'll add the drivers in for the Arduino software to actually be able to pick up the board. If you don't do this, you can be plugging it into Arduino for days on end. It's never going to come up. So this is the key step to making sure that the software recognizes the board. So once you do this, you know, it says here it can take some time. It'll probably fail because I've already done it. But we just have to basically wait for this to finish doing this. Okay, so that's done now. So next step, so we've gone and we've installed the dig. That's pretty well it. So we go back to Frederick's site, and then you want to download the software. So again, I put it to the desktop. Excuse me, it just makes it a little bit easier to find everything. So you know, just extracted it to the desktop here. Alright, so you can close that. So now you have your Proffie OS. You want to copy that, go into your Arduino folder, and then just paste it into here. Now obviously I've already got it installed. So that's basically it for the install side. Then you can actually test the board. You just go into the Proffie OS. You'll see the little proffios.arduino file. So you open that up. Now next step here is to go to the tools and go into the boards manager. From here, because we copied the URL over, you just want to search for Proffie, and you'll see it here. The versions, these are the different versions that you want to come up. The latest version is 1.0.0, which will work with the version 2.2 boards and all the software going forward. Normally this gets updated not very often, so you don't have to really do this all that often. You just have to really do it the first time and then it's done. So because I've selected one already, it's not in there, so you just select one, hit install. That'll take a little bit of time, install the board essentially, so that'll show up, the Proffieboard version 2.2. You close that, then you want to go up to the top to tools, under boards. Make sure that it comes up. You'll see them down here. So we've got the Proffieboard for 1.5 and Proffieboard for V2. If you have 1.5 selected, which is just basically non-V2, and you try and program a V2 board, it'll program, but it will just be blank. Nothing will work. It will just be like you've fried the board essentially. You haven't. All you need to do is make sure that you've got the V2 selected, reflash it with the V2 config, and then it will come back to life. So basically this is how you're going to come up. So if we install the board again, from here we just go up to tools, under port, should show up if all goes well. Alright, so it comes up under your little list of ports. If it doesn't come up the first time, what you can do is just unplug the USB cable from your computer, or I use an external hub. Unplug it, plug it back in. It might even happen a few times where it won't see it. Try different USB ports as well if it doesn't work. If it still doesn't work, try different USB cables. Some cables are pretty flaky. I had to actually buy a new cable to get it to work. I just bought a right angle cable as well, so it's a little bit easier. And I also have, for tight spaces, or if I need to fix the board, I've just got a normal USB cable which I've just cut up, just cut the sheathing around to make it a little bit thinner to be able to get into the tight spaces. So that works fine as well. Alright, so once you've selected your board, you need to add your config file. So here you can see all the config files that we use for installing all of our Sabers. It'll come up as default. There'll be some default ones in there, but you want to make your own. So the first thing to do for that, again, is go back to Frederick's site. If you click on the Proffieboard, up the top here, it says V4. The V2 boards is just V5. That'll take you to the Proffie V2. Now, what this is here just runs through what the board does. Just keep scrolling down, and here's where you can set up your config. So here, you tell it how many LEDs it is. LEDs number is of the blade. So if you've got, like a 34-inch blade, it could be 130 LEDs. If you don't get it right, if you leave 144 and you have a 32-inch blade, it'll still light up all the way, but you won't get tip drag or any of those other effects. Or if you've got Fernandos lock up, where it shifts down the middle of the blade, it will be more to the top as opposed to in the middle. So you just want to make sure that you have your correct number of LEDs in here. You can actually, once we render this out, you'll be able to see that you can go in and change it. But yeah, so normal install, NeoPixel install is just going to be, one strip. When you do both strips, or if you use KR Sabers' new upcoming strip, it's a double-sided strip, you still only have to select one, because you just double them up and then run them back. If you want to do crystal chambers, that gets a bit more advanced, but you just go up to here, and if you're going to do a cross guard, it shows you the config and how to wire up a cross guard, etc. But for this purpose, it's just a single one. If you want to use 2 buttons or 1 button, if you've got the Bluetooth thing on there, kill switch, just shows you how to wire in the kill switch or wire in the Bluetooth modules. So you can do all that from here. But once you've done that, this is the sort of sample config file that you're going to get. So one thing to note between the first and second versions, this include file here points to the V2 config. Again, if you accidentally load up a Proffie 1.5 config file onto a 2.2 board, it'll compile and it'll upload, but it'll just be blank again. Like nothing, you press the button, nothing's going to happen. It's not broken. Just reflash it with the version 2 config, and then it will come back to life. So some of the options here, so volume, I run them at 1900. So you can change that here. You can change all this after the fact. The clash threshold, I normally put up to 3.0, so make sure you don't get any ghosting, like ghost clashes. So you can play around with it. I just do 3. It seems to be a good stopgap where you can still clash on the blade, but you don't really get too many false clashes. And then, none of this you need to change, and then you get into your configs and your presets. So this here is basically how your fonts get set up and how your blades get set up. So what we'll do is I'll jump into one of my other blades that I've done. So if we go back into the Arduino folder, into the Proffie OS, then into your config, here are all the, all the config files for all the Sabers that we install. So we'll go into the Ahsokas, right? So this is the latest one that we're doing. So again, it's as per the last one there. So, volumes at 1900, clash thresholds at 3.0, and then we've got our actual blades. So I think this is another area where people do get tripped up a bit, but I'm going to show you how to set up an SD card with the fonts. Let me just, I've got to open a new one. So prepared, I am not. Yep, dropped it. Okay, so let's put this in. Alright, so I've added the SD card. So the way that this works is here we've got AH2. Right, now that there is the font folder. So depending on how you want to set up your SD card, these are your fonts. So the first line here is your font folder. The next line is your music tracks. And if we go to our font, so we'll put the small one on. So these are all of our fonts packages that I've already set up. So I'll copy these over to the SD card. So I'll show you what all this is and how it corresponds. Okay, that's done. Alright, so what are we going to do here is we're going to slip this over, bring this up. So, as you can see here, AH2, AH2. Now if we go in here, this is the actual font. All these majority of the fonts here are done by Jesse. We do have some KSith, and I think they're mainly the two, KSith and Jesse. Mainly Jesse. Excellent font maker. You know, they're just banging them out. They're all excellent. Definitely check them out. So this is the preset here. So AH2, AH2. Now you do need to set this exactly how it is here. It needs to be exactly how it is on the SD card. Also need to make sure that it's capital. Capital for the first. If it's not capital, it doesn't work. It will say font not found. So AH2, AH2. As we go down, AHS, which is a second font with just a different font package. So here we have, you know, we go into the boot. So you can hear that. So the thing with this to note is the first font, if you have a font, so in here is the font. So the font basically means when you're skipping through fonts on the Saber, the font as you're skipping through is going to be the font, this particular file font here. When you first boot the Saber, so the very first one in the top, so when you pull the kill key or turn the kill switch on, this is going to be the first one. That's boot. So just something to remember. So if you turn it on and it's got this weird noise, it's because you've changed the font file but not the boot file for the very first one. After all the rest of them, it's just onto font. So when you change the font, that's what's going to play. If, say, I move, you know, the Graflex 8 one up to the top, whatever's in the Graflex 8 one, so if we go to Graflex 8, so here, this is one of KSIF, so the boot sound is different to the font sound. So it'll boot the wire you hear as opposed to something. So that's just something to note. So then you've got your fonts. Then you've got tracks. So tracks are just all your music tracks that you want to play when you hold down the power button. So you can change here. This is just where you have them here. So here, you know, we've just got some of them are the same. You know, like Clone Wars is just, I think it's the Clone Wars music. Yeah. So it's just the Clone Wars music. So that's where you change that. That goes into tracks on the SD card. So that's pretty well it as far as setting up the fonts and the tracks. Now we're into the meat and potatoes, the blades. So on Frederick's site, he's got a style editor, which is, you know, frederick.hube.net/lightsaber/style_editor. Here you can start to build out your blades. So, you know, for this one, it's the AH2, which is the Clone Wars Ahsoka, and it's more of a sort of a greeny yellow sort of color, more on the yellow side. So what you want to do from here, down here you've got your templates. So if you click this, then obviously, you know, you have power, so you can see what the power is going to be like. The clash, so you can see how the clash is going to be like. Blaster blocks. Force is just the sound, doesn't do anything. Lock up, tip drag, and then, you know, you rotate. So what you can do with here, obviously it's not blue. So from here you've got your base color, and so you want to have it green yellow, right? So we change that green yellow. So what does that do? So you click back up the top to make sure everything's highlighted, and now that's changed the power. So that's going to be your base blade. Now for clashing, you can see it's just white, a white clash. Blaster block, again, it's just a white clash. Lock up turns blue. Obviously that's no good because, you know, you want it to either be white or I think in Clone Wars it's like a yellowy green. So from here we just go down to where it's blue. Lock up color is blue. So we want to change that to say yellow. Go back up the top. And now the lockup is going to be yellow. So yellow and white. Say we wanted to have the lockup be yellow magenta. Same thing. lock up, and it adds the yellow magenta sort of look to it. So that's basically, you know, how you would set up a basic blade. Then you can go to, so for there you just copy that, go back into your config file. This is where you add your blade here. So you just, you know, paste it in. Make sure that when you add this in, there's a little comma. If there's no comma, it won't compile. So just make sure that there's a comma there, and then that's basically your blade for the first one. Another good resource to this is Fernando's site. So he has all his things set already. So if you go to his site, which is, you know, you can copy this link up here, he has all the blades set up ready to go, and they're phenomenal. So you want to be looking for the main OS blades, which is 2.9. He's got the blades for the beta version. You can just watch some of these videos to see what's coming in the new software, which is going to be phenomenal. And then he's got the fork OSs for different versions, and you know, that's a whole other thing. So we want to be looking for main OS styles. Alright, so here again you can watch his videos and see what they do. So this is Electra staff blade. So if you go down to, you know, maybe just a basic sort of one. Obviously, you know, Ahsoka's you want to change because these are just red. So say we want to go. Alright, so we want to go something like this, right? So this is blue with localized lockup. So you can view it in the style editor and see what it does. So your power is obviously blue. Lockup is the localized lockup, so it's just going to move up and down. So obviously from that, we want it to be green, yellow. Here you can go in and modify everything. It takes a while because he does such a good job. So again, so alright, we'll change that. So we've got that, but clash is different, lockup's different. See, like lockup's blue. So you just got to go through here and change, you know, anywhere where you see, you know, sort of a blue or deep blue, steel blue, you can change them to your blade colors or change them to however you really want. So this is just going to be, you know, whatever color your blade is or effect that you're going for. You know, and then you got your tip drag. So you can change that. You just go into here, change all the different colors as you go through until you match it all to the blade that you want. So he's done it really easy. So if you are making a blue blade, all you need to do is just copy it and then go into your config file again, go to here and then paste it in. Now see here we don't have the comma, so if I was to save this and add it in, it wouldn't compile. You just got to add a comma in. So that's it. So say you've set up all your configs, so you've added all your fonts in, you've added all your different blades. So you know, if you go through, there's all the different blades here of all your different fonts. So you save that, and then you go back into your software. Now here you go into your config file. So this particular one here obviously is, you know, the Ahsoka small. So you just want to uncomment out that defined config file there. You have to add it if you're doing from scratch. So you just do, you know, copy the first one. You know, you just right click, copy it, paste it underneath, and then just change it to be whatever it is. So, you know, you save it, whatever it is. And then you uncomment it out, and then away you go. So here we've got to uncomment it out. We've got our config file set into the config folder inside the Proffie folder. Here you can test it to see if it's going to compile. So at the moment it's running through that. It's running through this to see if it's going to compile. If it hasn't thrown up errors yet, it's going to work fine. So see, you've done it and it's compiled. So you go back up here. USB type, you can just have serial. If you want to be able to add fonts and stuff through the USB, you can do serial plus mass storage plus USB or web USB if you want to program it from the web. This is all pretty well the same, smallest code than your port. So obviously we've got this here. It's selected, and then we just hit the little arrow up the top, and that's going to compile and upload to our board. So you'll get this, and this means it's going through the motion. So at the moment it's uploading onto the board here. And then, you know, you'll be ready to go when you actually install the board. And then we've already copied all the files over to the SD card. So all of these here, and they're all matching our config file. So as you go through, all this matches this, our config. Take the SD card out, plug it in, turn it on, and you should be good to go. Some of the issues that come up when you do them, the main one is not having your commas set in your config file. So again, if you come through, you know, and so say if we save this, so you've copied over, either you've made your own or you've copied over one of Fernando's, you've added it in. So see, that's compiled properly. So now we want to go to test it, and it's thrown up an error. All right. So the error, basically, when you see this, it's hard to sort of define it, but when you see this, or here where it's got, you know, it expects to have a comma, just go back through, make sure that your lines are separated out, add your comma back, and then, you know, if we save it again, we go to compile it, it's going to work. What I normally do is, if I'm copying over, you know, like a heap of different blades, or if I'm reusing an existing config file and changing it, say you go through, you know, you want to copy and paste the whole thing, or you're putting a whole bunch of new ones on there, I would go in and do them one by one. So you go in, add the first one, you know, make sure it compiles. Okay, that's good, so we know that one works. Go in, add the second one, make sure it compiles. Yep, all good. And then do it that way. What I've done happen in the past, if I'm copying over, you know, a few, and you put them on and then you hit the button, it doesn't compile, it's harder to go and find out which one's not working. If you do it one by one, then you know, okay, well, that one's working, that one's working. Then if you put the third one on or the fourth one on and compile, it doesn't work, then you can go back through and see what I've done. So what have I done here? Oh, well, I'm missing, you know, a comma here, or I'm missing a comma here, and you can just add them in and recompile them. If you add a bunch of them on at once, it's just harder to nail down, you know, what's really happening. So that's basically it. You know, to copy out the new line, so you just copy the whole thing. So from the open bracket to the closed bracket, copy that, and then whoops, what did I do? I didn't copy it. So yeah, go in, copy it, hit enter, paste it in, and then do, you know, change this to whatever AH3 or whatever your next one's going to be. Save that. Make sure that, you know, that font folder is on your fonts, and make sure the track's in there. If you want to have tracks, you don't have to have music on there. If you just leave this blank, it won't play anything. Then you go in and change your blade. Another thing that people ask is, you know, if I've programmed the board already, or if they've bought an installed one from us and they want to change fonts, you know, or want to add another blade, you have to program these boards. What you can do is, if you get one of our Sabers installed, and, you know, we have like 20 different fonts on there with 20 different blades and maybe different blade colors. Say you wanted to have, you know, a blue blade, but you wanted to have an ESB sound font, right? You pull out the SD card, plug it into your computer, you'll see, you know, all right, well, that's number 3. So as you're cycling through, that's going to be the third one. Or if you know it's a Graflex one already, you can go into that font folder and just leave it named the same. So leave it named Graflex 8, so that's the same. But you can dump a new font into the actual folder itself, and it will play just with a blue blade. So, you know, it's just, if you want to go through and add different blades in. So I had a customer that wanted to add a shredder font into a purple blade after the fact. So we went into the mace blade, and it just added a shredder font into the mace blade because it's purple. You wanted a purple one. So you can do that after the fact without reprogramming the boards. That's pretty well it as far as, you know, what you really need to understand with this stuff. Once you do it, you know, it's pretty easy. There's a dig part is the biggest part that you want to do. That's the thing that I think a lot of people get hung up on, because if you don't do that, it's never going to see the board. I don't know if it's just a Windows thing or if you have to do that on Mac as well. But that seemed from the people that I've spoken to and helped get it up and running, that's been the one thing that they haven't gotten right is the dig part. So that's just something to be wary of, and obviously making sure that you know, in the software, making sure that you've added the URL to actually see the board, and making sure that the correct board is actually selected under your boards here. So that's basically it. So again, if you are doing this and you know you've got a 1.5 Proffie and then you've just bought a new V2 Proffie, 1.5 Proffie, you have to go back and select Proffie, just Proffie as it is, and then do it. Do your programming. You'll see in your config files, this will say V1, and then your blades array will be different as well under the V1 version. So, there's another thing. So when we were talking about the blade pixels from your config, if you're doing it from Frederick's site, you can change it under here, under the blade config. So here we've got, for the smaller circuit blade, it's 98 pixels, because I think it's a 28-inch blade. So it's 98 pixels to light the tip drag. So you can change that in here after the fact. You don't have to do it, you know, through his site. But yeah, so make sure the dig's working. It tells you what to do here, you know, to get it to show. And that's pretty well the main thing. If you have any questions, you know, reach out. You can hit me up on the email. But yeah, I think that's pretty well it. And if you want to see any more of these videos or any more tutorials, you know, let me know. This is sort of the first one I've been thinking about doing it for a while. So yeah, if you need any help or suggest any other videos that I can show you, let me know. Alright, thanks guys, appreciate it.